In the year 2010, the television landscape was forever altered by the premiere of Spartacus: Blood and Sand. It was not merely a series, it was a visceral phenomenon, a spectacle of blood, passion, and an unyielding cry for freedom that resonated deeply with audiences worldwide, with its graphic, novel aesthetic and Shakespearean dialogue. The show pushed the boundaries of what could be shown on screen, becoming a commercial juggernaut and a defining cultural touchstone for a generation. But while the characters on the sands of the arena have become immortal legends, the men and women who breathed life into them have walked paths far more complex and human. 15 years have passed since the gates of the Ludus first opened. Time has carved its own marks upon the cast, with fates ranging from enduring stardom to quiet reinvention, and tragically, to lives cut short too soon. Let us peel back the curtain and look beyond the gladiatorial armor to witness the tumultuous, heartbreaking, and inspiring journeys of the cast of Spartacus. Andy Whitfield as Spartacus. In the annals of television history, few performances have been as raw and physically demanding as Andy Whitfield's portrayal of Spartacus. As the Thracian warrior who was stripped of his name and forced into slavery, Whitfield was the undeniable heart and soul of the series, with his piercing blue eyes and a physique sculpted by grueling hours in the gym. He embodied the spirit of rebellion. He was not just playing a hero, he became a symbol of defiance against tyranny, capturing the pain of a man separated from his wife and the fury of a warrior fighting for his dignity. His acting at the age of 38 was a revelation, simultaneously vulnerable and terrifyingly powerful, off-screen. Andy's life seemed to be mirroring the ascent of his character, born in Wales and working as an engineer, before finding his calling in the arts. He was a man who had fought hard for his break. The role of Spartacus was his victory, the moment the world finally saw his talent. He was a devoted husband to his wife Vashti and a loving father to 2 young children. They were a family navigating the sudden blinding glare of Hollywood, fame trying to keep their feet on the ground as Andy's star rose. Vashti watched as he returned home each day, his body battered and bruised from the punishing stunt work. Yet his spirit remained gentle. He was on the precipice of becoming an action superstar with the world at his feet. However, the narrative of his life took a turn that no scriptwriter would dare invent, just as the first season concluded and his career reached its zenith. Andy began to suffer from persistent back pain. What was initially dismissed as the result of intense training was revealed to be something far more sinister: non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The gladiator who fought Imperials on screen now faced a microscopic enemy within his own blood. He attacked the disease with the same ferocity he brought to the arena, undergoing aggressive treatment, with the hope of returning to the role he defined for 18 agonizing months. He fought. He fought for his career. Yes, but mostly he fought for more time with Vashti and his children. It was a battle of immense courage, documented in the heart-wrenching film Be Here Now, showing a man trying to find meaning in the face of mortality. But unlike the stories of old, where the hero always triumphs against the odds, reality can be cruel. The journey so full of promise and strength came to a sudden, devastating halt. On September 11th, 2011, Andy Whitfield passed away in Sydney. He was only 39 years old. The silence he left behind was deafening. His legacy, however, was not just a season of television. It was a lesson in grace, love, and the fragility of life. He remains forever the true champion of Capua. Lucy Lawless as Lucretia. Lucy Lawless, already a global icon for her role as Xena warrior princess, stepped into the sandals of Lucretia with a predatory grace that redefined her career. At 42, she shed the armor of the Amazon to wear the silks of a Roman domina. Lucretia was the mastermind of the Batiatus household, cunning, ambitious, and desperate for an heir. Lawless played her with a terrifying mix of vulnerability and venom, her performance anchoring the show's political intrigue. Yet behind the scenes, the transition was far from simple. Stepping into such a sexually charged and violent world brought a new wave of scrutiny from conservative critics, distancing her from the family-friendly hero image of her past. Her personal life, often assumed to be as charmed as her career, had been a battlefield of its own. Her early years saw a marriage collapse while she was still very young, leaving her to navigate the industry as a single mother. The immense pressure of the Xena phenomenon had previously taken a severe toll on her mental health, with the media's relentless gaze causing deep anxiety. By the time she took on the role of Lucretia, she was navigating a complex existence, balancing the demands of a controversial show with her marriage to producer Rob Tapert. It was a period of intense instability where the lines between her public persona and private self blurred under the weight of expectation. The connection between Lucy and Lucretia is fascinating in its contrast. While Lucretia's ambition ultimately consumed her in flames, Lawless used her own ambition to forge a path of longevity and reinvention. She refused to let the industry pigeonhole her or break her spirit. Over the years, she has moved behind the camera, exploring her voice as a director and continuing to act in diverse roles that challenge her range. She learned to protect her peace, stepping back from the chaotic precipice that fame often pushes actors toward. Today, in the year 2025, at the age of 57, Lucy Lawless stands as a testament to resilience. She has found a rhythm that eluded her in her younger years, currently directing and starring in My Life is Murder and engaging in passion projects. Her life is no longer defined by the frenetic energy of the arena, but by a stable, creative existence. With a net worth of approximately $30 million, she has secured not just her future, but a legacy of survival in an industry that often discards its icons. John Hannah as Batiatus. In 2010, John Hannah transformed himself into Quintus Lentulus Batiatus, the ambitious Lanista, whose charming smile hid a heart of absolute darkness at 48. The Scottish actor, known for romantic comedies like 4 Weddings and a Funeral, shocked audiences with his portrayal of a man consumed by a lust for power. Batiatus was a volatile mix of inferiority complex and grandeur, and Hannah's explosive performance made him one of television's greatest villains. He was the architect of Spartacus's misery, a man who would burn the world to get what he felt he was owed. However, the man behind the villain was a study in contrast. Born into poverty in East Kilbride, Scotland, Hannah had worked as an electrician and mechanic before ever stepping onto a stage. He knew the value of hard work, and he knew the cost of it. Filming Spartacus required him to relocate to New Zealand for months at a time, creating a painful geographical and emotional chasm between him and his family back in London. His marriage to actress Joanna Roth was strained by the distance, and he often found himself torn between his duty as a provider and his need to be a present father to his 2 children. The exhaustion was palpable. The industry saw a successful actor. Hannah felt the crushing weight of isolation. The conflict between stabilizing his family's future and the demands of his craft led to burnout. He wasn't plotting domination like Batiatus. He was simply trying to keep his life from fraying at the edges to cope with the stress that threatened to overwhelm him. Hannah turned inward, finding solace in yoga and meditation, practices that were the antithesis of the chaotic character he played on screen. Now in 2025, at the age of 63, John Hannah cuts a different figure. His hair is gray, and his face carries the lines of a life fully lived, appears calmer, more reflective and deeply grounded. He continues to work in historical films and uses his platform to speak out on social issues. But the frantic pace has slowed. He resides in London, finally enjoying the proximity to his family that he sacrificed for so long. His journey proves that one can play a monster without becoming one, and that true success is found in the quiet moments of returning home. Manu Bennett as Crixus. Manu Bennett exploded onto the screen as Crixus, the undefeated Gaul. At 41, the New Zealand actor embodied the brute force and arrogant charm of the champion of Capua. Crixus was a character defined by his physical prowess and his tragic love for Naevia Bennett, brought a raw, animalistic energy to the role that made him a fan favorite. But beneath the armor of the gladiator lay a man whose personal life was shattering into pieces, hidden away from the cameras. While he was portraying the invincible champion, Bennett was facing a terrifying reality at home. His wife, producer Karen Horan, was diagnosed with breast cancer shortly after the birth of their third child. The cruelty of the timing was unimaginable. Bennett was torn between his professional obligations, flying between sets for Spartacus and later Arrow, and his desperate need to be with his sick wife. The distance strained their 14-year marriage to the breaking point. The stress of being a provider, a caregiver from afar, and an action star took a heavy toll on his own mental health. The physical demands of playing Crixus left him with chronic back pain, while the emotional trauma of his dissolving family life led to sleepless nights. Bennett, who had battled alcoholism in his youth, had to fight daily to keep his demons at bay amidst the chaos. The divorce was messy and painful, leaving him a single father trying to pick up the pieces of a life that looked perfect on the surface but was fractured underneath. Today, in 2025, Manu Bennett is 56. He is a single father, dedicating the majority of his time to his 3 daughters who are his world. He continues to work in television and maintains his warrior physique through martial arts. But the arrogance of Crixus has been replaced by the wisdom of a man who has survived great loss. He seeks inner peace, now more than glory. His journey a testament to the endurance required not to win battles in an arena, but to survive the wars of the heart. Leslie Ann Brandt as Naevia. Leslie Ann Brandt was the original Naevia, the gentle body slave whose love affair with Crixus sparked the rebellion. At 29, her performance in the first season was heartbreakingly tender. However, she left the show abruptly, a decision that puzzled fans at the time. The reality was a complex web of career ambition and difficult personal choices. She had to make the excruciating decision to prioritize her rising career over a pregnancy in 2013, a choice that haunted her emotionally for years, but ultimately granted her the freedom to pursue her dreams in a cutthroat industry. She eventually found massive success as Mazikeen in the hit series Lucifer, becoming a global star. But the challenges of womanhood in Hollywood continued. When she married Chris Payne Gilbert and gave birth to her son Kingston in 2017, she entered the trenches of working motherhood. She recalled nights of filming until exhaustion set in, only to come home and nurse her baby with tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect in both roles. Brandt's journey has been one of reclaiming her power. She transformed from the timid slave girl Naevia into the fierce demon Mazikeen, mirroring her own growth into a vocal, strong woman. She became a U.S. citizen in 2023, cementing her new life. In 2025, at 44, Leslie Ann Brandt is a powerhouse in Los Angeles. She balances a thriving career with a happy family life, unapologetic about the sacrifices she made to get there. She considers her greatest wealth to be the strength she forged in the fires of her difficult decisions. Peter Mensah as Oenomaus. Peter Mensah, with his imposing stature and booming voice, was the pillar of Spartacus as Oenomaus the Doctore. At 51, the Ghanaian-born actor portrayed a man of honor, discipline, and immense sorrow. A trainer who whipped slaves into gladiators but held a code of ethics in a lawless world. His performance was stoic, physical, and deeply commanding. Yet the road to the ludus had been long and fraught with the hurdles of systemic bias. Mensah had spent years fighting for visibility in Hollywood, often relegated to background roles or silent warriors due to his race and appearance. The production of Spartacus was physically punishing for Mensah. He performed many of his own stunts, sustaining shoulder injuries and pushing his body to the limit to maintain the physique of a legendary gladiator trainer. But the physical pain was often matched by a sense of professional isolation. Despite his success in 300 and Avatar, Mensah often felt like an outsider, a man without a true home in the industry. The character of Oenomaus, a man who lost everything he loved and stood alone in his integrity, seemed to mirror Mensah's own solitary fight for respect in the acting world. He channeled his frustrations into martial arts, using the discipline not just for fitness, but as a mental sanctuary. The darkness that sometimes threatened to encroach upon him was held back by the same iron will he displayed on screen. He became a mentor figure to younger actors, much like his character. Yet his own personal battles remained private and guarded. In 2025, at 66 years old, Peter Mensah remains a formidable presence. He has not slowed down, continuing to lend his gravitas to international television projects. He stands as an inspiration to black actors worldwide, proof that dignity and talent can carve a space in even the most exclusive environments. With a net worth of $5 million, he has achieved the security he fought for, transitioning from the warrior on the sands to a respected elder statesman of the craft. Viva Bianca as Ilithia. Viva Bianca, born Ilithia. Viva Bianca stepped into the role of the character who shared her name at just 27, as Ilithia the Spoiled. Manipulative and seductive Roman noblewoman, she became the show's most hated and paradoxically loved antagonist. She was the embodiment of Roman excess and cruelty. However, the woman behind the silk veils was a young, classically trained actress from Australia who was wholly unprepared for the storm that was about to engulf her. The role required extreme vulnerability involving graphic nudity and scenes of intense sexual violence. For a young actress, this exposure was a double-edged sword. While it brought her fame, it also brought anxiety and a feeling of objectification. Viva struggled with a mild depression, feeling the weight of the audience's judgment often conflating her with the monstrous character she played. She felt lost in the glitz of Hollywood, confused by the sudden attention that focused more on her body than her mind. Her life took a significant turn when she married musician Antonio Beliveau in 2016. Motherhood shifted her axis completely. The superficial pressures of the industry began to feel insignificant compared to the challenges of raising 2 children. She found herself exhausted balancing the desire to create with the demands of a young family. She pivoted, moving into writing and directing, seeking to reclaim her voice in an industry that often silences women. In 2025, at 42, Viva Bianca has largely stepped away from the sex symbol image that defined her 20s. She lives a quiet life in Los Angeles, focused on her family and her own creative projects. Her return to the screen in 2024's Neighbors showed a mature, grounded actress. She has shed the skin of the golden villainess to reveal a woman of substance, proving that one's early roles do not dictate the entirety of one's narrative. Daniel Feuerriegel as Agron. In 2010, Daniel Feuerriegel took on the role of Agron, a German gladiator whose loyalty to Spartacus was matched only by his fierce love for his partner Nasir. At 29, he became an LGBTQ icon, portraying one half of the show's most enduring romance. Agron was a survivor, the last man to standing, but for Daniel, the years following the show were defined by a different kind of survival mode. The brutal grind of Los Angeles. Leaving his native Australia for Hollywood, Daniel faced the crushing reality of the dream. The high cost of living, the endless auditions, and the deafening silence of the phone not ringing took a toll on his mental health. He faced rejection after rejection, watching his bank account dwindle. While the fame of Spartacus slowly faded in the rearview mirror, it was a lonely existence far removed from the camaraderie of the cast he had once known. He struggled with the isolation of the immigrant actor, often feeling like he was waiting for a life that wasn't starting. He took small roles like in Pacific Rim Uprising, but the big break remained elusive. It was a test of faith in oneself that broke many others. However, Daniel possessed the stubbornness of Agron. He refused to pack his bags. His perseverance finally paid off when he landed the role of E.J. Dimera in the long-running soap Days of Our Lives. It was the stability he had craved for a decade. Now, in 2025 at 44, Daniel still resides in Los Angeles. He has found his footing, living a life that is quiet, resilient, and finally secure. He remains single, a man who has walked a long, lonely road to find his place in the sun. Dustin Clare as Gannicus. Dustin Clare joined the franchise in the prequel Gods of the Arena as Gannicus, the charismatic, wine-drinking, sword-wielding rock star of the gladiator world. At 30, he played a man who laughed in the face of death and sought freedom above all else. His winning smile and carefree attitude masked a lethal fighter. In reality, Dustin Clare was far more serious and disciplined than the hedonistic character he made famous. Coming from a theatrical background, he approached the role with intensity, but the physical cost was high. A severe knee injury sustained during filming plagued him for years, a constant reminder of the arena. His personal life was intertwined with the industry as he married actress Camille Keenan. They shared a creative partnership, but it was tested by the harsh realities of the acting profession. Financial instability is the silent killer of artistic dreams, and Clare was not immune. The COVID-19 pandemic decimated the industry, halting projects and cutting off income. The god of the arena found himself facing a very human struggle: how to pay the bills and protect his family during a global crisis. The pressure weighed heavily on him. There were moments of darkness where he considered walking away from acting entirely. The birth of his daughter, Darcy, raised the stakes. He needed to be strong, not for a crowd of spectators, but for her. He channeled the resilience of Gannicus, not in combat, but in persistence. By 2025, at 43 years old, Dustin Clare has weathered the storm. He is deeply involved in independent projects in Australia and prioritizes his role as a father above all stardom. He may not be wielding two swords in the sand anymore, but he is fighting the good fight for his family's future, holding on to a net worth of $5 million and a life rebuilt on his own terms. Craig Parker as Glaber. Finally, we turn to Craig Parker, who portrayed Gaius Claudius Glaber, the Roman legatus responsible for Spartacus's enslavement. At 42, the New Zealand actor played the cold, calculating villain with chilling precision. Glaber was a man obsessed with status and public perception. In stark contrast, Craig Parker's real life has been defined by extreme privacy and a pervasive sense of solitude. Despite being a recognizable face from Lord of the Rings and Spartacus, Parker lived a life of isolation. A self-admitted workaholic, he threw himself into role after role to avoid the emptiness of his personal life. The intense fandom he experienced earlier in his career had birthed a deep-seated anxiety and insomnia. He feared the obsessive nature of the public and retreated into himself. He spent years single, moving from set to set, from Legend of the Seeker to Reign, finding comfort in the fake lives of his characters rather than building a real one for himself. The distance from his family and failed relationships only deepened his withdrawal. Now, in 2025, at 55 years old, Craig Parker lives in Los Angeles. He remains single, continuing his steady work in television. He is a man who has mastered the art of being seen by millions while letting no one truly know him. His life is a quiet echo of the solitary figures he often portrays, finding contentment in the craft, if not in companionship.